Hi, I'm Carl Stabe of Domino Connection, and today I have Ryan Smith, and he's a professional photographer. He's a friend of mine, and we're on the phone, and he gave me some really good tips about connecting with people. So I thought I'd bring him on today. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, Carl. Thanks for having me on.
Sure, sure. So just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dig in there and what you do.
Well, I'm a professional photographer working and living in rural Pennsylvania, in which often sends people for a loop, living in the middle of nowhere. But I shoot a lot of institutional work, meaning I do a lot of healthcare oriented stuff, education, but I also shoot for ad agencies and design firms as well. And I'm in a spot in Pennsylvania that gives me access to a lot of different metro areas. So yeah, I shoot a lot of different things. I consider myself to be more of a portrait, lifestyle oriented photographer. I'm good with people, and that's what I enjoy most.
Cool. So there's probably a lot of photographers, a lot of small business owners who have service-based industries, businesses, and let's dig in there and let's talk about where you've struggled, and then kind of how you overcame some of those struggles of connecting with people.
Well, I mean, I've been in business for 7 years, and I think when I got started, my initial thought was if you do good work, you'll make money doing it. And I quickly realized that's not the case. That you not only need to be a good photographer, you also need to be good at sales and learn how to connect with people and follow up with people and constantly be pushing yourself when you're not busy, instead of sitting around and relaxing, saying, "Oh, all right, I have all this free time." You need to be thinking proactively and thinking about how you're going to market yourself, where the next job's coming in. So I try to stay busy in that way. Um, did that answer your question? I think I got a little off topic.
Well, I guess where have you struggled connecting with people? Because like anything, it takes a while to build up your client base, who your client base is, who you connect well with. Like where have you struggled in that area? And I know, for instance, you started doing stock photography,
Hmm.
and then you said, "Wait a second, this isn't going to be a. I need to alter this career a little bit."
Yeah, yeah. Well, it definitely stock was interesting. I learned a lot by doing it, but ultimately, it wasn't for me in terms of what I was shooting. It was interesting, but I wasn't happy doing it all the time, and financially, it wasn't bringing in what I needed it to. So now I have a variety of markets. Like I said in my introduction, I have kind of the healthcare sector. I have education segment, and then I have what I would call more of the commercial ad work. And I'm just starting to get more of that type of work, and that's what I've been building to. The institutional stuff, like getting those markets, like with healthcare and education, lots of times that's direct to the institution. So let's say there's a college nearby. I'll reach out to the marketing director or the director of advancement, try to get in the door with them, show my portfolio, and same goes for like a hospital. I'll reach out to their communications office, PR offices, try to find the right people there,
Well,
and then
let's look at that. Like, how do you take those steps? Like, what's the first step? Do you cold call them? Do you email them?
um, I've over the past, let's say, 4 or 5 years, I've really built a pretty solid list of leads and prospects, and now some of them clients. And basically, what I do is I do my research. I find the institutions that might have a need for my kind of photography, and I'll try to find the right people to get in touch with. And I think the biggest hurdle is getting past the gatekeepers to get to those people. But now with things like LinkedIn, Google, you can find so much information online, find out who that person is, and then I'll typically give a call, and usually 9 times out of 10 I'll leave a voicemail, and I'll usually just quickly introduce myself. I mean, it's really, really short message, and then I just say I'm going to follow up with an email. And so that's the key when you're finding people's contact information. I try to make sure I get their phone number and their email so that I can actively follow up. Then I'll follow up with an email, tell a little bit more about myself, link to my site, and try to schedule a time for me to come in and meet face to face. Because in my business, there's a lot of talented photographers out there. We're all over the place, and I think my style of photography sets me apart. But I also think my way of working and my personality is what really sets me apart from other photographers. So if I can get a face-to-face meeting where I go in, talk, try to find some kind of common ground, find common interest, and show my portfolio that way, that's usually how I gain a new client and then begin that relationship.
So common ground, do you mean like you both have dogs, or?
I mean, that could be it.
Okay.
Could be anything like that, or just even finding out like what their son or daughter's name is and just like remembering those little things. Or maybe they say they're interested in skiing, and so next time I see like a really cool ski picture, or see like or maybe I see new web design or something for a ski resort. Maybe I'll just send over, hey, I know you like skiing, you might want to check out this resort. So simple things like that, just so it's a little more personal than, hey, I'm a photographer, you're the marketing director at this college, hey, give me a job. Mm-hmm. No, instead, let's build a relationship where you want to work with me. Like, yeah, you have other photographers to choose from, but you like me. You like working with me. You like the work you get. You know you're going to get a good end product, so you're going to call me first.
Yeah, I like that. So I have a story that I want you to tell, but not yet, because I want you to describe your personality, because it is tough for people, the cold call, the building relationships. I've worked with clients and they're just like, I can't do that. And I'm curious to, what's your personality type? How are you able to do this? And do you think anybody can do it?
Yeah, I definitely think anybody can do it, because when I first started, when I transitioned out of stock in a more commercial realm, we moved from Austin, Texas to Mercersburg, Pennsylvania. And so totally new market. I know people up this way because I grew up here, but that didn't necessarily translate into business contacts. So we're kind of starting from the ground up. And we met with actually a really great business advisor through a local SBDC program. And she gave us a lot of tips. And her number one tip was like, just make calls. She's like, they're free. Mm-hmm. And I was so resistant to it. Like, I don't want to cold call. I hate cold calling. And she pushed me to do it. And over time, I'd do a couple calls a week, and I'd hate it. My palms would get sweaty. I'd get nervous. But pretty much every call, like when I did get a person on the phone, it resulted in an interesting conversation. Yeah. I just tried to be myself. I didn't try to be sneaky in any way. I just explained who I was and what my interest was. And that interest is always getting my work in front of them so they can see what I can do. And now I don't really mind it at all. I go through periods now. I wouldn't say I'm cold calling every week, but say every other month or so, I'm going through a series of calls, where I'll go through a day where I'll make 10 calls. The next day I'll make 10. I try to do 20 or 30 in a week. And then I might not do any for, 2 months.
Mm-hmm. So I want you to share that story now of, I think it was an advertising company in Baltimore?
In D.C., Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a job I'm still working on. So I'm not really at liberty to say who it is or who the
That's fine.
client is.
Let's start. How did it start? How did you make that first outreach, and then how did you?
Well, it actually began, probably 4 years ago. My first contact with them was through Larissa, through my wife, through her ex-boyfriend. Actually works at this agency, and she had reached out to them. They were still in touch, and got contact information to a couple people there, the art directors, creative directors that might be interested, and we were able to set up a meeting. Went down, met with them. That was the same thing. Like, called first, emailed, was able to set up some meetings. Went down, showed my portfolio, came back, and gradually just kept in contact through email promos over the next couple of years. I got a job from them about 2 years ago, and continued to keep them on my list. And then this recent project, it's for a trade organization that deals with in the auto industry, and I sent out this email promo. I didn't know about this project ahead of time. It was this promo I wanted to send, talking about my dad, and he always said he's a car mechanic, owns a garage, he's a small business owner, and has been all his life. And I remember asking him when I was younger, I was like, "Dad, how do you know how to do so many things?" And his response was always, I don't know, I just know. And that kind of stuck with me. And the more I thought about that, the more I realized that's kind of what I do as a photographer. Like, somebody asks me to do a job, it might be logistically challenging or technically challenging, and I might not know how to do it when they first ask me how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to problem solve to make sure that they get what they need, and we figure out the appropriate way to approach it and figure out how to stay within the budget they have allotted for it. And so I wrote about that, wrote about him, his process as a mechanic, problem solving, troubleshooting, and how it relates to me. It lands in the inbox of an art director at this ad agency in DC, literally minutes after she stepped out of a meeting talking about photography for this particular auto industry client. And they were like, "Oh, wow, yeah, we've met this guy, we like him. His dad was a mechanic, like, it seems like we should give him a call." So they gave me a call, and I got the details of the project, put together a really, really well thought out proposal, and explained my approach to the project, like how I would want to shoot it, how I would want to do it, and ultimately won the bid.
That's great.
So yeah, that's one of those stories where it just, like, things just happened at the right time.
But I think it's the actions that you took and put in place previously. I always talk about the dominoes. Like, could have been 4 years ago, but you set up that domino, and now you kept trying and kept trying, and finally it tipped for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the key with photography or any freelance kind of job, or even corporate business. You have to be persistent in your message, and you got to keep reaching, keep calling, keep connecting with people, and eventually, like I said, over 4 years ago, the first contact, and in those 4 years, I had one really small job from them, and now I have the biggest job I've ever got. So it took a while, but I finally got there.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious to your tactic of building relationships. Did you feel like sending an email about your dad would help you connect easier because it's a personal story?
Yeah, I mean, the way I send email promos, I try to share some of my work. So maybe it's a new image, or a new group of image, a new series, and I like to write, so I try to write like a small, like, paragraph, 2-paragraph thing. So it's more like a newsletter, and within that, you get to glimpse a little bit of my personality, who I am, without being too overwhelming that nobody's really going to read. So I try to get people into the email by the image, by a nice subject line, something that might intrigue them. I don't know. I just know. Hopefully that makes them open it, they see the image, like, oh, that's a cool image, and then they start reading a little more. And most of the people on the list, hopefully they at least know my name at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that might be a bit optimistic, but that's what I hope. So I'm hoping they'll be like, oh yeah, there's another email from Ryan, let's check it out.
Do you brand those images?
You mean with my logo
Yeah.
or anything? No, it's just clean.
Okay.
My branding's at the top of the email promo, so my logo, my name, and then an image, and then typically I'll just a short paragraph or two.
Well, just my brain going. If you put your logo on it and it became something shareable, then you could have your little logo. Like, let's say someone's like, "That's cool. Like, I'll share that on Facebook," and then
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. Hey, I haven't really thought about that, but it's a good suggestion.
So, anyway, sorry. Keep
going.
No. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's most people. It's especially in business, we feel like being personal is almost like a detriment in some way because we're like, well, we know we do great work. I'm a great photographer. Why don't, like you said, like if I do great work, people should hire me. But people want a connection. People want to be able to trust you. And with that, building that trust is creating that connection where there's a personal connection in some way. Like you said, even if it's a name of the son or if it's you both have dogs or you both love skiing, whatever it is, your dad's a mechanic and they need someone to shoot cars, then that's going to be something that's that connection for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having that personal connection is key. And like I said, there's so many, especially in my position, there's so many talented photographers. Like, I want to be the photographer that people are like, hey, he's a lot of fun to work with. Let's hire him. He's fun to work with and he delivers good work.
That's a good point you brought up because I'm thinking like every photographer, I need a niche, but you do it in a certain way. You need to stand out. You don't necessarily need to be, I only shoot automobiles. You can be the photographer that does multiple things, but they need to be able to remember you somehow.
Yeah.
And that brand is that personality that you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've always resisted the idea of having a very specific niche. I don't want to shoot the same thing all the time. And I'd say my particular style of photography is one that involves a lot of problem solving. Like, I like to figure out the best way to shoot something different. And I hope that sets me apart.
And do you think that does, because some people, they don't want to have to problem solve and don't enjoy it as much because they're like, I know how to shoot kids or I know how to shoot automobiles or whatever it is?
Well, I think it depends on the client. I mean, and let's say an ad agency that needs a photographer who shoots fashion photography, they're probably not going to give me a call. I don't really shoot fashion. I like to think I probably could, but ultimately, that's kind of naive because there's so many amazing fashion shooters out there. Mm-hmm. I'm somebody who can shoot images to make things feel a little more authentic, a little more real. So there's definitely certain styles of photography that I wouldn't be a good fit for. And, I try to be upfront with people if, like, so it was last year for Yingling. I got a job with them, and part of it was shooting lifestyle images of people, employees in the brewery. And that's something I'm really good at, connecting with people, taking environmental portraits. But the other component to the shoot was shooting still life images, like product shots of the bottles. And that's not something I typically do. And I was very upfront with that. I was like, I don't want to say I can't. I was like, but it's not, I wouldn't call it my specialty. And they were really open to that. They were like, well, we want something that looks a little different. So let's have you do it. Yeah. So I was like, oh, great.
Cool.
And I shot it and it looked cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I always ask this, and it's a part of every interview I do. What's the secret to happiness?
Um, well, I don't know that I have the secret, but
For
I
you.
think for me, just if I can pick out one aspect of the job that I'm doing, maybe I have to edit. Maybe I did this job where I shot 2,000 images, and I'm going to spend the next couple hours sitting on my computer in the dark editing it. And that's not my favorite thing to do, but maybe I'll put some good music on. Maybe I'll put on my iPad in the corner. Maybe I'll put a sports game on, just something like to help me enjoy it a little more and pick out one little thing. So it's not just a dull, like, drudgery of a task.
Mhm.
Like, it's something that I'm like, okay, this is fun. I'm going to surround myself with enjoyment. So I think coming back to your question, I think the secret is just pick out one thing about everything you do, try to figure out how to enjoy that one little task. Even if it's the most mundane task, try to make it fun in some way.
I like that. Even cold calling. Like,
Even cold calling, like, make it a challenge. How many can you do?
yeah,
Can you get past the gatekeeper and talk to a real live person?
yeah.
Like, figure out more efficient ways to leave messages.
The gamification of it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're in business for yourself, you want to make money, but you want to enjoy what you're doing. I mean, I became a photographer because I love photography, but I also wanted to create a lifestyle that I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. So, let's say there's a photographer out there, or even somebody like yourself in the service-based business. What's the one thing they can do to start building up those connections? And instead of maybe taking 3 years to really uh, make the connections that they want, maybe it'll take 2 years. What would be
Yeah.
that one thing?
Well, I don't think I can condense it into one thing, but I would say the first thing that any photographer needs to do is have a good body of work. So get out and shoot a lot. Think about what you want to be shooting, what kind of work you want to do, and go out and create it. Make sure you have a good, solid portfolio, and then you start making your calls. And you don't want to just kind of open the phone book and pick willy-nilly. You want to be targeted. Like, what kind of businesses are going to be interested in my style of photography? What kind of industry do I want to work in? And then build your list, and be meticulous about it. Find the right people. Start calling and emailing, but try not to be overly obnoxious, because a lot of people, you get 100 emails a day. Last thing somebody needs is another email from another photographer who's not really telling them anything. So I would say make sure you have a message, make it interesting but not long-winded, and make sure the work's good. That's really the key. You got to have good work first.
So they can. So it comes back to that trust factor. If you got just okay photos, they're going to be like, "Well, this guy's a hack."
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
I mean, same with website design. You got to go out and do free work for people until you have a little portfolio up on the web. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you just gotta, you gotta pay your dues. I definitely have over the years doing a lot of jobs I really didn't want to do, but sometimes you need a little bit of money. Sometimes the pay is not good. And sometimes I do jobs where the pay is not good, but the actual concept and the actual shoot itself sounds really interesting, and I know I'll enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So I do that.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. Where can they go to find out more about you and to see your body of work?
Well, my main website is www.ryansmithphoto.com. And you have to remember there's a lot of Ryan Smiths out there. But I'm the Ryan Smith Photography based in Pennsylvania, ryansmithphoto.com. So remember that. And then I also have a blog. It's called playingworkblog.com, playingwork.com. Check that out. I don't update it as much as I'd like to, but I like to use it to write more about photography and about things I've been thinking. So that's a good way to learn a little bit more about me. And then you can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff with the call name Ryan Smith Photog.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man. This has been great.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me, Carl. It's fun to talk about this stuff.